Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Adib bin Zurymee, and today I will present about my research proposal. So my supervisor is Madam Noryani binti Sabturani. Okay, so my research title is Physical Activity and Sedentary Behavior among UiTM Samarahan Student. So for the background of study, physical activity is described as any movement caused by skeletal muscle that result in an increase in energy expenditure above the resting metabolic rate from Angelo 2018. Physical activity is a healthy way for people to enhance their physical, psychological, emotional health and affect their view of life. Computer use, television watching and driving car are example for the sedentary behavior. Sedentary behavior can be assessed using questionnaire technique for the example from Angelo 2018. Any walking behavior with an energy cost of 1.5 MET is classified as sedentary activity, which is including sitting and lying down from Angelo 2018. Physical activity and sedentary behavior are not the opposite of each other. Individuals are considered to be active when they reach physical activity recommendation for their age, which does not prevent them from also devoting a significant part of their time to sedentary behavior. In other words, individual can be classified as both active and sedentary. Now, for the problem statement, in a study by JUL 2007 who assessed the physical activity among gender, males was reported to be high active compared to female respondent. JUL 2007, on the other hand, discover on apparent systematic difference between physical activity and sedentary behavior, and the respondent sample of university student is influenced because most of the research assume the similar result, with male being more active than females. Sedentary behavior may be reported differently. As a result, the goal of this study is to determine the level of physical activity and sedentary behavior among UiTM students. So, next, research question and research objective. Research question number 1 is, what kind of physical activity do respondents engage in, or do they do the same workout every day? Number 2 is, there a large difference gender between physical activity and sedentary behavior for UiTM Samarahan student. And for the research objective is to identify physical activity and sedentary behavior among UiTM Samarahan student. And number 2 is identify or measure physical activity and sedentary behavior in gender among UiTM Samarahan student. Okay, for the hypothesis, for the null hypothesis HO1, there is no significant difference between physical activity and sedentary behavior among UiTM Samarahan student. And number 2, which is HO2, there is no significant difference between physical activity and sedentary behavior in gender. And number 3, there is no significant difference in active or inactive daily routine between physical activity and sedentary behavior among UiTM Samarahan student. For the alternative hypothesis HA1, there is a significant difference between physical activity and sedentary behavior among UiTM Samarahan student. And number 2 is, there is significant difference between physical activity and sedentary behavior in gender. And number 3 is, there is a significant difference in active or inactive daily routine between physical activity and sedentary behavior among UiTM Samarahan student. Okay, so for the significance of study, number 1 is benefit the health of UiTM Samarahan student. Number 2 is determine whether people active or inactive in their routine or free time. Number 3, the result may help them to manage and give some simple activity that they can use. Number 4, may assist the learner in focusing or adapting a better lifestyle. Number 5 is it was necessary to assist student benefit because they were vital to their health. Okay, then for the limitation. The limitation for the study is the questionnaire in the form, because some of students may be not understand or hard to understand, so they cannot answer the question or hard to understand. And number 2 is some respondent can be honest. So for the delimitation, the respondent need to complete the questionnaire, which is International Physical Activity Questionnaire, which is IPAC, and Sedentary Behavior Questionnaire, SBQ. Respondent are UiTM Samarahan student, either male or female students. IPAC and SBQ used to measure level of physical activity and estimate the overall physical activity. The data from the questionnaire will be measured to know whether the student is active or inactive. So, for the definition of terms, physical activity, any body movement created by skeletal muscle contract that increase energy consumption above a metabolic rate. So, from Angelo 2018. Then, regular physical activity will improve one's health and quality of life as well as the business, from Richard 2013. And then, for the sedentary behavior, any walking activity with an energy expenditure of 1.5 meter or less in a sitting or lying posture. This study looks into the idea by looking at a workplace energy cost map from Medah Mansubi 2015. Okay, then for the literature review. So the first one, the title is Physical Activity, Inactivity and Sedentary Behavior. So the research proposal, the purpose of this study was to determine the physical activity performed by students, its frequency and intensity, and how the physical activity may relate to their physical fitness and academic success. Number 2, physical activity and sedentary behavior among Finnish youth. So this research objective is to aim determine the proportion of young Finns meeting in current guidelines for youth physical activity and to examine between physical activity and different sedentary behavior. And number 3, the title is Physical Activity, Sedentary Behavior and Quality of Life among university students. The aim for this study was to explore the relation between physical activity, sedentary behavior, and the subjective and objective indicator of quality of life among university students. So, for the methodology, research design, the non-experimental research design is the best design for this research to accomplish the study objective. If the researcher was a good understanding of the social phenomena or behavior, researcher will be employ a descriptive analysis. This study also use an online survey method, which is a more used method currently. This analysis is full since the researcher needs to collect data on a minor phenomena. So for the research framework, independent variables. Number 1 is UiTM Samarahan student, and then number 2 is gender, which is either male and female. And for the dependent variables, physical activity and sedentary behavior among UiTM Samarahan student. So for the population and sampling, population of this study is UiTM Samarahan student. About 8,063 students in the campus will be randomly selected as a respondent. The respondent of this research is UiTM Samarahan student from different faculty and gender. The total of the student is spread into two campus, which is 5,044 from campus 1 and 3,090 from campus 2. According to population of UiTM Samarang student, 860 students in total. The sample size is suggested by Critch and Morgan 1970 is S367 based on the total population. Okay, next for the instruments. To begin, the respondent must fill in their background, age, gender, and two areas containing demographic section A and section B. Section B will use international physical activity and the sedentary behavior questionnaire. There are 10 elements and 2 sub-dimensions in the questionnaire. 2 sub-dimensions is 5 sedentary and 5 active activities. Direction: just read each of the question following items and fill in your answer using scale from 1 to 5 based on time and hours. So for the hypothesis and inferential static analysis, for the hypothesis, we will use independent sample t-test analysis for all the hypothesis. Okay, so as you can see the data collection from the slide, this is the step for the research. For the data analysis, researcher will using the social science statistic software, which is SPSS. The translator employ descriptive statistic to assess the demographic of the respondent. Inferential statistic were employed to accept or reject the null hypothesis to determine physical activity and sedentary between the student. UiTM student, a questionnaire is used. And lastly, as you can see from the slide, this Gantt chart for the research from March to February. So that's all for me. Thank you.